Begin the current Daf Yomi Beruchas Daf Lamed Ches. We begin 8 lines Daf at the top of the Amud, where our shiur is sponsored by Kahal Zichron Yechezkel, Torah Anytime, and Daf Chaim. We do a quick review of Daf Lamed Zayin as much as possible, where the Gemara had two teachings from Rabbi Shmuel regarding the Chameshes Aminim, regarding the bracha that you make, where Kol sheyesh boy, if it even just contains one of the 5 types of grains, then even if it's not the primary ingredient, you can make a b'rim mezainis. And also Kol shehu, whatever is composed of the 5 types. So what do you have to say therefore? So the Kol sheyesh boy is even if it's tarayvis, and that's how we rule that even if it's just a mixture, ingredient number 5 could be grain, you're still going to make a b'rim mezainis. And Kol shehu, the Gemara thought originally that it's coming to tell you that only grain, the 5 types, wheat, barley, oats, those things, then you're going to make a b'rim mezainis. But rice and millet, we're coming to tell you that you're not going to make a b'rim mezainis. Ultimately, the Gemara rejects that. The Gemara goes through a whole discussion regarding Eretz V'Deichen, which the bracha Rishayna we make is a b'rim mezainis, and the bracha Achrayna is a shahakal. We went to discussing regarding porridge, what's called rita de chakloy or chavetz kedera. Originally, the Gemara thought to say, depends what's the main ingredient. If there's a lot of flour, you make a mezainis. If there's more honey, then you'll make a shahakal. The Gemara says no, like we're saying from the teaching of Rabbi Shmuel, that grain is always going to be the primary ingredient. So you're going to make a b'rim mezainis even if there's more honey, and that seems to be an important ingredient, still you make a mezainis. So we spoke about regarding this dish called chavitza, which they would take bread and they would pour it into a pan and cook like that. Rabbi Yisrael says it depends if you have the perurin, if the crumbs are at least the size of a kazayis, like you find by the menachas, that then you're going to make hamaitzi. But if it's smaller than that, you can make a mezainis. Ultimately, the Gemara does not conclude like that. Rather, like Rav Sheshet says, you're always going to make hamaitzi, even if it's smaller pieces, as long as you have what's called teresa de nahama. And we were speaking with the rabbi about this in the morning, that as long as it has the shape and the form, if you find small pieces of bread, you're going to make hamaitzi, even if it's smaller than the kazayis. And then we concluded with different things like truknin and teresa. These are things that they're not regular dough, they're not regular bread. They're loose batters, they're made with fruit juices, and you put on the spit. And therefore those things that we discussed regarding if there's going to be halacha farshas challah, maybe you're not going to make hamaitzi, you're going to make mezainis. But there are certain things, even though you make a mezainis, if you kaveh sud, if you're making a meal out of it, then you're going to make the bracha of hamaitzi lechem and arz. Some ideas we're going to speak about in today's daf in Beruchas Daf Lamed Ches is continuing with the same amora on the halachas of brachas, which discusses that of different fruit juices. That the halacha is that it's shahakal, unlike grapes and olives, it's not going to have the halacha by pre-eitz. We also speak about regarding trima, which is partially crushed type of a fruit. Does it retain the bracha? Does it retain the halacha of being by pre-eitz? Then we're going to continue with another dish called shtisa, which is made out of toasted grain. We're going to see, depends how it's made, if it's thick or thin, what the halacha, the bracha is going to be, and how that relates to halachas of Shabbos. Then we're going to go back to halacha, the Mishnah, which discusses laws of bread. What's the nusach of the bracha? The text, is it hamaitzi or is it maitzi? That depends on if that's present tense or past tense, because obviously we're saying Hashem already took this out and we're about to eat it. Then we go to the halacha, the Mishnah that talks about yirakas, regarding greens, about the bracha bar priadama. The Gemara is going to talk about what's halacha if you cook vegetables. Does it retain the bracha bar priadama? Does it become a shahakal? And that's going to be actually a machlekes regarding exactly how to qualify what the different opinions are, and depending if it starts off as a raw vegetable, is it more edible when it's cooked or when it's raw, what the halacha of the bracha is going to be. And the Gemara gets in discussion regarding who is the machlekes with, who should we rule like, who would we even contend with when you have a discussion, what was the opinion of Rabbi Yechanan, that we're going to see towards the end. And then the last final discussion is going to be regarding what's the shiur of a kazayis, regarding making a bracha achrayna, regarding what type of olive actually do we quantify that with. So we continue on top, like we said in Lamed Ches and Alf, 8 lines up on the top of the Yomid, where we continue with the same amira on the halachas of brachas. We had just mentioned them a line beforehand from the previous discussion, so the Gemara quotes him again for the following halacha. Hay duvsha de tamri, regarding this honey that comes from dates. Mevarchin alavei shahakol niya bedvar. Although dates is our aids, you're going to make a shahakol, and that's actually the halacha. My time, what's the reason? Says the Gemara, because zeya ba'amhu, which literally means to say it's just sweat, meaning it's not the fruit to make a bar pre-eitz. It's just like squeezing out the moisture, but it's not the fruit itself. It's considered zeya ba'alma. Now, says the Gemara, come on, who's that going like that? You don't consider the fruit juices as the pre itself. Says the Gemara, ki haitan, it's going like one tan, and that is of Rabbi Yeshua. Did not learn the Mishnah Masechtas Trumas that says, regarding a different halachic context of the laws of Truma. The halacha is dvash tamarim, regarding date honey, or v'yain tapuchim, which is apple cider, or v'chaimet savanias, which is at the end of the harvest. They have these grapes all the way at the end that they don't really fully ripen. So you can't really make good wine out of it, so they would make vinegar out of it. So this is that type of vinegar. Or v'shamei peiros, or all other fruit juices, which this is the halacha we want to bring this Mishnah in for. So the halacha is, if there's shal truma, that Rabbi Eliezer mechayev keren v'chaimish. He says that if, let's say, someone drinks it by mistake, there's a halacha that if someone by mistake drinks truma and he's not supposed to, he's a zar. So besides the principle that he has to pay back because he went and ate truma inappropriately, he has to also add on the penalty of the fifth. Now, Rabbi Shua Paiter, and this is the opinion we're saying like, Shua says, no, you're exempt from achila of truma. Why? Because the fruit juices that you drank are zeya ba'alma. It doesn't have the designation of a pri of truma on it, because being considered a pri as a liquid would only apply by two, and that's actually the halacha. There's only two types of juices that have the halacha of a pri. Olive oil, which you'll make a bar prietz, as we discussed in the previous daf, and grapes, where you'll make actually a special bracha, and that's what a previous Gemara's discussion was, because it's chashiv and it's sayid, it's satiate, you make a bar pri agafen. But all of the fruit juices, that's what Rabbi Shua is saying. You didn't do an eating of truma. You just got the zeya ba'alma, just the moisture, but you didn't have the pri of the truma itself. That's like Ma'abar Ravashi, who says, yeah, it's not considered. You'll make a shakal because you had benefit from the world. But it's not a pri at all. It's not something that we're going to say that it's a pri that grew from the ground or from a tree. And that's what we find by the penalty of eating truma. It's not considered a pri. And so to regarding the bracha, it's not going to be considered like a pri. Now, related discussion, one of the rabbis said to Rabba, trima mahu. What's the halacha? What bracha do you make on trima now? As we're going to shortly see in the Gemara, trima is anything that's partially crushed, but not totally crushed. It's like smashed a little bit. So says the Gemara, "Lahavadaiti the Rava my kamali." Rava didn't know what he was asking. He didn't know what trima was. So Yasser Ravina came to Rava. Ravina was in front of Rava when this Talmud asked the question to Rava. So Amalei, Ravina said to that rabbi, "Which trima are you asking about?" Because remember, trima means to say a crushed fruit, but or vegetable. He didn't say which one. So he's asking him, "The shum shemi ka'amrit? Were you talking about sesame seeds where they would crush it to get out the oil from the sesame? Or the kurtami ka'amrit? Were you talking about that of saffron, which is karkum, where they would crush it a little bit, they would put in some wine and they would drink it? Or the purtzani ka'amrit? Or maybe you're talking about grape pits. What they would do is they would crush the grapes, then they would put in the peels and the pits into water to make, in Talmudic times, they had this alcoholic beverage called temed. So they would put in these pits and the peels, and they would let it ferment a little bit. So which trima are you talking about? Now, the Hachi says, in the meantime, when Rava was hearing this conversation between Ravina and that Talmud, Aski Rava Ladaite, Rava realized from the questioning of Ravina that he was asking, Rava understood what the question was. Amalei says, oh, chashilta v'adika amred. Almost definitely what you're asking me is something that's partially crushed. We find this word chashilta in Chulin, bei chashilta, like the crushed eggs. So, at the Kartan Milta, now you remind me of the halacha. Hadamar Ravasi says a different halacha, also related to truma. Says, "Hi tamri shel truma." This tamri, the dates of truma, mutalas men trima. You're allowed to make trima, which is like a date paste, which means say you're not totally obliterating the truma. Because the halacha is by truma, you're not allowed to obliterate it, you're not allowed to destroy it. You can't, even if you're doing it for eating purposes, you have to retain the form of the original pri. So one thing you see, if you're allowed to make trima out of the dates, obviously it's b'milsei koy, it retains its original status. Because you're not allowed to remove it from the original status of a pri. Oh, obviously, if that's the case, that means you make a bor pri'et on the trima. But the Ravasi continued his halacha, was v'asalas men shecher, but you're not allowed to make beer out of it, because although you're using it for drinking, but you're destroying it. You don't see the date anymore. It totally dissolved and got put in, fermented, and became into a beverage of beer. So that you can't do, but you're allowed to make trima. So obviously you see that trima retains its original status. It says the Gemara Hilchos halacha is tamri v'avdinu trima. If you have a date and you make trima out of it, again, which means like you partially crushed it, mavarchin elavai by preit. You make from this paste, and that's actually halacha. A by preit, it retains the status of the form of the fruit, which is the by preit. My time, what's the reason? Says the Gemara, like we said before, it retains its status. Like we said before, regarding the laws of what are you allowed to do to truma, that's the same that applies to the laws of brachas. It retains its form of a pri, even when you turn it into a paste, and therefore you're going to make a bay priet. Says the Gemara, a different food item. Shtisa. Shtisa is a dish that was made from toasted grain, from flour, toasted flour, which was dried in the oven when the kernels were moist. So you made like a little of a granola type of a grain, and then they would grind it into flour, and then they would mix it like with honey. They would make a dish out of this. So it's a machlekes. Rav Ami says you make a shakal nibidvari. It has all that honey and whatever. You make a shakal. Shmuel says no, baymin mezainis. So I'm Rav Chizda, and this is where it gets a little bit like say cheshbon, calculated. That's why we have on the board all that different graphs. It says v'lei pliki. It says no, it's not a machlekes. Ha Shmuel was talking about ba'ava, when it's thick. When it's a thick type of a toasted grain dish, then it's a very thick consistency, so it's like an oatmeal, if you would say, and that's actually halacha. You make a bar min mezainis. When Rav said you can make a shahakal, is beracha, is talking about when it's loose. When it's loose, as the Gemara explains, ava, when it's thick, lachila avdila, you're making it for eating. So therefore it retains the original status of the toasted grain, which is going to be a mezainis. But raka, when it's soft, when it's liquidy, l'refu kavdila, when they would make it, they would drink it down. It was for therapeutic, it was for medicinal purposes. Therefore, it doesn't have the halacha as a food item anymore. So you're going to make a shahakal. Like when you take medicine that tastes good, you'll make a bracha because you're enjoying the taste, but it doesn't have the halacha anymore as a grain dish. It's more like a medicinal thing. So on that, Master Rabbi Yosef, so what happened was you had a machlekes Rav and Shmuel, and Rabbi Chizis says not a machlekes. He said that one is talking about when it's liquid, and one says when it's thick. On that, Master Rabbi Yosef refutes Rav Chizda from the following brisa. The brisa says, the context of it, they was talking about the laws of Shabbos in this brisa. The question is, are you allowed to go ahead and mix bran with water on Shabbos? What would be the problem with doing that? It's magabel. Magabel is like lush. You're making a texture that gathers together. That's what lush is. Lush is kneading. You take flour and water, you make a dough out of it. That's forbidden to be done on Shabbos. So that's a machlekes regarding could you put bran in water. But says the brisa that we're quoting Rishavin, but they both agree, those who disagree, those Tanaim, they agree that you could do the following thing. And this is actually the halacha. Shebeichishin, the word beichish, as Taisus shows that it's like a terminology when you're mixing with a spoon for something that's liquidy. That's very watery. There's no lush. Therefore, they both agree that you could stir es hashtus, which is again talking about the liquidy shtus, which is the case we're talking about the shtisa, this dish that's made with toasted grain and honey and water. Although they had a machlekes when it's thick, this shtus that it's loose, all of them agree that you could mix it b'Shabbos and Shabbos, and that's like Allah. It's not going to be a problem about lush. Now, moreover, b'sheisim zeisam mitzri, you're allowed to drink this laxative called the Egyptian zeisam, which the Gemara in Pesachim that Membez explains what it is. So you're allowed to do these things on Shabbos. Says Rabbi Yosef on Rav Chizda, if you would entertain to say that this liquidy shtisa is l'refu kamachav, and you say the reason why it's shahakal, that's what you're explaining, is because people take it for medicine. So it's not anymore like a food item to make a mezainis. You take it for medicine, you're drinking it down, so therefore it's going to be a shahakal. On that, refu b'Shabbos mishari, we know you're not allowed to do anything of medicinal. You're not take a Tylenol aspirin on Shabbos. So if the shtisa is l'refuah and it's liquidy, so how could you say that you're allowed to go ahead and make this on Shabbos? You're not allowed to have something of refuah on Shabbos. So that contradicts Rav Chizda, who he was saying that the liquidy shtisa is shahakal because l'refuah, but you see that it's not l'refuah because then you wouldn't be able to make it on Shabbos. Similarly, Abaya answers back to Rabbi Yosef's question. He says, what? V'atlei tizber, you don't think that the liquidy shtisa is permitted to make on Shabbos and it's not a problem about refuah? But what's not ruled in Mishnah Masech the Shabbos that says, and this is an important halacha, kala oichel, this is how we rule. All food items, oichel adon l'refuah b'Shabbos. Let's say you have a sore throat. You're allowed to make yourself a glass of tea with honey because it's a food item. V'chala mashkin shay, so all beverages you could drink on Shabbos. Now, what are you going to say? Hey, why are you allowed to eat a food item that's refuah on Shabbos? You're not doing refuah on Shabbos. How are you allowed to take that tea with honey if you're doing something for your throat? Because the person, what's he doing? He's intending to eat, and that's permitted to be done. So although, and we'll see this actually in the second version, although the refuah is happening, but that's happening by itself. So therefore it says Abai to Rabbi Yosef, hachanami also by the liquidy shtisa. You're right, it's for medicinal purposes, and you'll make a shahakal. But the reason why you're allowed to do it on Shabbos is because it's a food item. A person's eating this liquidy shtisa. So although his intention is refuah and he's going to make a shahakal, but it's not an obvious refuah. It's like taking a glass of tea, a glaze of tea. No one sees anything. You're just drinking a tea. I'm drinking a cup of tea. That doesn't have the Isser refuah on Shabbos, but still it's going to have the bracha of shahakal. And therefore that doesn't refute the interpretation of Chizda. Now, the Gemara just brings a Lishna Achrin, another version, which is essentially the same thing as the first version, although the Mefarshim do contend if there's differences, but it's just a little bit more explicit. So this is just a continuation of Abaya's statement, just in a slightly more explicit version. What do you have to say? That Mishnah that says you could eat a food item for refuah on Shabbos, you can't do refuah. No, and the person is doing it for eating purposes. And here's where it's more explicit. And the healing happens by itself. So Hachanami also by the shtisa lachila kamachav, and his intention is to drink and eat the shtisa, the liquidy toasted grain with honey dish. The refuah happens by itself. So therefore you're allowed to do it on Shabbos. But that doesn't contradict this halacha that yes, his primary intention but is refuah. And therefore he's going to make a shahakal because it's not a food item. Because usually we would say that's a contradiction. If it's a refuah, you can't do it on Shabbos. No, you can do it on Shabbos, it's like a food item. But what's your main intention? Is refuah. So therefore you make a shahakal. But now the Gemara asks it as a question, but it's saying in a statement. V'tzricha de Rav u'Shmuel. You need to have the teaching of Rav, which says that the shtis is shahakal. What's bothering the Gemara? What's bothering the Gemara is, wait a second. Rav is an Amoira. You have a brisa that you just brought that says regarding Shabbos, it's a food item. And therefore you're allowed to eat it on Shabbos. Although it's going to heal you, but it's a food item, so you can do that on Shabbos. So why do you need Rav to tell you that you're going to make a bracha? Why do you need? He said you're going to make a bracha. Shahakal, Shmuel said, okay, when it's a thick thing, which is unrelated to us, we said it's a thick thing, then you'll make a mezainis. What do you need Rav for? Of course you're going to make a bracha. You just said it's a food item. So what's the chiddush of Rav? Says the Gemara, because the imehai had we only had the brayse that says that you're allowed to make it and do it on Shabbos. Havimina would have said yes, la'achilukum achavim, because like you just described, when the person is drinking that cup of tea, he has to be doing it in the way of his intention is to eating purposes. And refuah, like we said, the healing happens by itself. That's where it's not obvious that you're doing for refuah, and therefore it's going to be permitted to do on Shabbos, and therefore that's why you're going to make a bracha, because you're eating. Remember, it's Shabbos. You can't just do straight up Talmud on Shabbos. If it's like, it's something you take milk of magnesium, and so you take something that's going to take care of your upset stomach, but it's a food item. So of course then you're going to make a bracha. Aval hacha, but in the case that Rav is describing, where the person is coming, his whole intention was, I don't want to eat this. It's just that my stomach's hurting me, my head's hurting me, my body's hurting me. Therefore, I'm going to take it. I would say, no, you're not going to make a bracha at all, because your intention is l'refuah. That's why you need Rav to tell you, since ultimately you are having pleasure, because it's a food item. So by Berucha, you're going to have to make a bracha. You wouldn't know that from the Bryce. From the Bryce, you would think on Shabbos, and you're doing it obviously as a food item, because that's inherent, because or else for a food you wouldn't be able to. So then you're going to make a bracha. But if you're coming on a weekday, let's say you're just coming to take the thing, I would think you're not going to make a bracha, because you're doing it for medicine. But no, you have a no. Even though you're doing it for medicine, you have to make a bracha. It's not going to be a mezainis, because you're not doing it as a food item, but you have to make a shahakal. Except for water, water is a different, we'll see that on a later daf, that water is not something that it doesn't really give you pleasure. It's only if you're thirsty, then it gives you pleasure, but it doesn't have the actual flavors in the mouth. Now, we learned in the Mishnah that said, Shalapas on bread, he says, Hamaitzi v'chulu. We know the bracha, we're going to all make it tonight by the Suda, Hamaitzi lechem in the arts. So turn around, we learn the brayse, it's actually machlekes. Mahoim, what do you say when you come to eat bread? Says the brayse, the Tanakama says, Hamaitzi lechem in the arts. We thank Hashem that He created, that He takes out bread from the ground. From the Chem Yami says, no, Maitzi lechem in the arts, without the hay. That he took out the bread from the ground. So Amar Rabbi says that he explains. He says, B'maitzi kul amalei pligi, he says, no one disagrees if you don't say the hay, that you're going to fulfill your obligation. Why? Because the apik mashma. The word maitzi is a past tense word. Now that's really the appropriate bracha, because we want to say the past tense. The bread you're about to eat, that you're making a blessing on, Hashem already took this out of the ground. So you have to say a past tense. You're not going to say something, a present or future tense, that Hashem is going to, because you're going on the bread that you're thanking that He already took out of the ground. And where do we find that the word maitzi means a past tense? Looks like it says a pasuk Mamidbar. It says Bilam was saying, Kel maitziyim mitzrayim, the God who took them out of Egypt. So the Parsha Bilam, the Jews already left Egypt. So he said the word maitzi means a past tense. Ki plagi, when there was a machlekes in the brayse, baham maitzi, with the hay, that's contended. Rabbanan Sarbi, they hold, hamaitzi, that word also is the apik mashma. It also means past tense. Because the chsib, what's their proof? The pasuk in Devarim. Pasuk says, hamaitzi lecha mayim. They were talking about the praise of the be'er mayim that they had in Midbar. Hashem took out water for you, which was already done all the 40 years in the Midbar. Mitzur hachalamish, from the rock that's the flint. So, therefore, you see the word hamaitzi also means a past tense. But from Nechem Yisab, he holds no hamaitzi, that word, demapik mashma, that we just changed from an aleph to a mem. Demapik mashma sounds like it's in the present, meaning it's something that's going to be. Shnema, he brings a right from a pasuk in Shemais. It says regarding when the Jews were in Egypt, Hashem told them, Hamaitzi, the Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, Hamaitzi eschem, he who is going to take you out, mitachas sivlas Mitzrayim, from the burden of the Egyptians. Now, when this pasuk was said to Moshe, the Jewish people didn't leave yet. So obviously the word hamaitzi is going to be in the future. Now Rashi points out, what does he do with the pasuk of the chacham of hamaitzi l'chamayim? Because although it was the end of the 40 years, but they still had water. So it was talking about regarding the future tense. But hamaitzi does not mean that it's in the past tense. It means regarding the future. Says the Gemara Rabbanan. What do they do with his proof of that pasuk that it sounds like hamaitzi is for the future? They say now that pasuk is a whole reinterpretation. So this is what Hashem was saying to the Jewish people. You're in Egypt right now, but when I'm going to take you out, I'm going to do something for you, that you're going to know that I'm the one who took you out of Egypt, meaning I'm the one at that point in time that you're going to say, I took you out of Egypt. Like it says in that pasuk over there, v'yadatim, that you should know. That's the future tense. K'ani Hashem lekeichem, that I'm Hashem your God. Ha'moitzi, that took you out. Meaning, yes, in the future, you're going to know, past tense, that I took you out. So that's the machlekes regarding, the word ha'moitzi, is that future tense, the way Rabbi Nechemia said it? Or is it no? It's actually past tense, like the Chacham hold. But what do you mean? But they didn't leave Egypt yet. But it's not going on. And it's saying, in the future, when you're going to be out, then you're going to say, I took you out. So the word hamaitzi is in the past tense. Now you know when you make the bracha tonight, you're going to say that the word hamaitzi is not such a pashut zach. If it means future tense or past tense, but we rule hamaitzi, which is the past tense. Now the Gemara brings a story related to this. Mishtapchen le Rabban Reb Zera. The Rabbanan praised Reb Zera as to Reb Zera as Bar Rav Zvid. They said that this Rav Zvid, this son of Rav Zvid, they were talking to Reb Zera and they told him about this Bar Rav Zvid, who was Achud Reb Shimon Bar Rav Zvid. He was the brother of Reb Shimon, the son of Rav Zvid. The Adam Gadlahu, he's a great person. The Baki Bebracha, so and he's very proficient in the laws of blessings. So he said to them, okay, when he comes to you, they bring him to me. So one time he came to him, and he took out bread for him. He made the bracha. He said, "Maitzi lechem nartz." He says, "This is the person that they say on him. The Adam Gadol is a great person. The Baki Bebrachas, and he's proficient in laws of brachas." He explains why he was bothered. Bishlami Maitzi. I understand if he would have said on the bracha Maitzi with a hey as we continue on Beis. So Ashmi'inan Taima, he would have told us an understanding of an interpretation of a pasuk like we just explained before. That although it says Maitzi when they were in Egypt, it doesn't mean that a future tense. It was actually the future Yediyah with the past Yetziyah. So he would tell us an interpretation of a pasuk, and also in the Hilchos Rabbanan, he would also be telling us that Halachos Rabbanan, as we ruled that Hamaitzi means a past tense and therefore an appropriate bracha on the bread that you're eating. But now that he's saying without a hey, what's he telling us? Everyone agrees to that. No grace of chiddush over here. He's the grace of baki and brachas. Well, what do you even teach us? Now the Gemara tells us, but that he did this, that he said without the hay, because he didn't want to get involved in machlokes. Nice, everyone agrees without a hay, so therefore he said without a hay. But the truth is that he understood that he just didn't want to get involved in machlokes. But the Gemara says the Hilchos Halacha is, and we rule hamaitzi lechem and arts. We say with a hay, and because the Kamal Krabana, because we all like Rabban, I mean that they say the apik mashma that it understands the past tense. Now Taisa asks the obvious question: why get involved in machlokes? Why say with a hay? Everyone agrees maitzi means past tense, so. L'Rav Chedemilsa do like Reb Nechemia. So Tais says, brings from the Yishalmi that no, we didn't want to say without a hay. Because if you say without hay, what's the bracha? Bracha Hashem Akeinu Melech Ha'olam Maitzi Lechem. Without the mems are going to touch. We always want to be careful because then you're going to mumble one of the mems. Now Tais points out, although in the bracha itself you're mixing one of the mems. What's the bracha? Continue saying Ha'maitzi Lechem Min. You're mixing the mems over there. So Tais says no, because where do we get the nusach of the bracha Hamaitzi Lechem Naaretz from? It's a pasuk in Tehillim. Pasuk says Matzmiach Chatzal Behema Ve'Isav Lavoid Adam Lahaitzi Lechem Naaretz. So it's a pasuk. So we're going to keep that terminology, that vernacular, because we want to keep the verse. And actually, Taisa says that's why when we make Hamaitzi, that's actually B'ron Halacha, hold it with both hands with 10 fingers, because there's 10 words in the pasuk. And the pasuk that the bracha hamaitzi is based on is this pasuk. So therefore, there we have no choice to keep the lechem min. But where we could avoid it, hamaitzi, we're going to say with a hey, not to have the mems touching. And therefore, that's as we rule, and that's the bracha that we make. Now we continue with the Mishnah. The Mishnah says about Yerakas Aymer B'chulu. On greens, we said it's a machlekes, but the Tanna Kama says you make a bayir priyadama. The Gemara makes the following diuk, the inference from the Mishnah. What was the halacha we just mentioned before as we were discussing in the Gemara? The Mishnah said on bread you make hamaitzi, and then it goes right into Yerakas that you make a bayir priyadama. Says the Gemara, Katani Yerakas, so we learned the category of herbs, of greens, dumi the pas, similar to bread. Now Taisa points out, vegetables are not exactly like bread, because bread always gets better when you bake it. Vegetables don't all get better. So Taisa explains the Gemara, what it's coming to say is that by bread, you don't lose the bracha when you bake it. To the contrary, that's when it becomes hamaitzi. So too, what the Gemara is about to tell us is that by vegetables too, it doesn't lose its status when you cook it. So as the Gemara explains, ma'pas, just like bread or it changes when you put it on fire, which is bakes, and that's when it has the primary bracha of hamaitzi, which that the Mishnah tells us. Af Yerakas nami, so too when the Mishnah tells Allah of vegetables, we're talking about vegetables that changed by cooking it on fire, and even so it's going to retain its original bracha, and you're going to make a bayir priyadama. So Amar Rab Naim Shmei Dabai says Zaysim, this tells us shlakos, which is the primary category we're going to talk about for the next bunch of lines, is all cooked vegetables. Mavarchan alay bayir priyadama. You make a bayir priyadama on cooked vegetables. Says the Gemara in the parentheses Mimaid Mindigtani Yerakas Dumi the past, because we said that vegetables are just same as bread, which you put it with fire, and it has the bracha what we say in the Mishnah. Now, however, the Gemara brings it's not so simple. The Gemara brings Darish Rav Chizda Mishum Rabbeinu. Rav Chizda expounded the name of our teacher, Manu. Who's that teacher? That's Rav. That he said, yes, shalaka is cooked vegetables, mavarchan aleim b'rei priyadam. Make a b'rei priyadam. But Rabbi Seinu Hayir de Eretz Yisrael, our teachers who came down from Eretz Yisrael, with the Talmud Bavli is in Babylon, which is in Bavel. So, but they were Talmudic scholars in Eretz Yisrael. So our teachers who came down from the west, from Eretz Yisrael, Umanu, who's that? That's Ula. He says, Mishmid Rabbi Yechon Amahu, he was in Eretz Yisrael. He says, no, shlaka is cooked vegetables. Mavarchan alein shakal ni b'dvari. You make a shahakal. So you see it's a machlekes. But, says Rav Chizda, he was giving the drasha in the shul, and he says, no, I say, I'm actually going to resolve the opinions. There is no machlekes. There are some vegetables when you cook it that's a b'rei priyadama, and there are some vegetables that you make a shahakal. And he explains. He says, call every vegetable that's eaten raw, shetchilasa b'rei priyadama, so that when you originally eat it in its raw state, you make a b'rei priyadama. When you shalaka, when you cook it, when you stew it, now you're changing it from its original status and you're downgrading it. And therefore, now it's going to be a shakal nevid var, which Gemara later on is going to explain which vegetable gets worse when you cook it. It's by garlic and by leek. So then it's going to be a shahakal. Now, but v'chol, any vegetable that it's not normal to eat it raw, shetchilasa in the beginning if you eat it raw, the bracha is going to be shakal niya b'dvaroi. So then shlake, then when you cook it, now you're making it edible, that it's the primary way that it's eaten, which is when it's cooked, and then you can make a bracha by priyadama. Very good. We were just miyashiv. This is the contradiction. It's not a contradiction. One was talking about that it's usually eaten raw, and then you cook it, then it becomes by priyadama. Meaning, if it's eaten raw, then it's by priyadama. Then when you cook it, make shahakal. The other one was talking about it's not edible raw. When you cook it, then it becomes by priyadama. But then the Gemara wonders, what are these cases? What are these vegetables you're talking about? Bishlam, I understand. What's the vegetable that it's not really edible raw, that you can make a shahakal if you eat it raw, and therefore shlaka if you cook it, it's by priyadama. Mishkachas, and this is actually the halacha. Bekrava, cabbage. Cabbage is something that maybe today it's different, but the way it's paskin in halacha is that it's not really the primary vegetable. It's cabbage. You'll make a shahakal. The silka beets. Who eats raw beets? Actually, today people do. But bukara pumpkin. Who's eating a pumpkin that's raw? So therefore, the primary halacha is actually that it would be a shahakal because people don't eat it like that. You cook it. Cooked beets and cooked pumpkin. Then now you could eat it. So then you're going to make a bar priyadama. But this that you said that originally you make a by priyadama. Shalaka is shahakal, but when you cook it, it gets worse. You make a shahakal. So which vegetable gets worse when you cook it? If anything, all our vegetables we cook, it's good, it's geschmack. So which one is that? Some Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, he says mishkachas, and it's actually the halacha bitumi with garlic, as the place can explain, meaning with water, because actually when you roast garlic, it actually doesn't get worse. But when you cook it with water, bekarti or with leek, meaning leek, if you cook leek, then it's going to get downgraded. It gets worse when you cook. It's going to be a shahakal. Now, Tesa points out a very interesting thing. He says, what do you mean? You see when you cook garlic, you cook leek, it actually makes it better. He says, no, that's because of the meat and the salt inside. But actually cooking it makes it worse. It's better in its raw state. So when it's raw, it's going to be bradama. When you cook it, then it gets downgraded to shahakal. That is how Rav Chizda resolved those two different opinions. Now, we're not finished yet. Rav Nachman, he expounded the name of our teacher. Umana, who's that? That's not the same teacher we mentioned before. That was Shmuel. He says, shalaka is cooked vegetables, mavarchan aleim by priyadama. It starts off the same type of conversation. He says, Shmuel had said, you make it by priyadama. V'chavereinu hayod Eretz Yisrael, and our colleagues who came down from Eretz Yisrael, man, who's that Ula, as Rashi points out, Rav Nachman was chashav, and therefore he didn't call Ula Rabbi Seinu, he called them our colleagues. So he said, Mishmid Rabbi Yechanan, he said name of Rabbi Yechanan, that no, shalak is cooked vegetables, mavarchan aleim shakal neim b'vay, make a shahakal. Now, unlike Rav Chizda, who he was meyashiv, and he says, no machlekes. He's talking about that, and he's talking about that. Rav Nachman says, Vanir and I say, b'machlekes shenuya. It is a machlekes. They do disagree, and I'll show you this because that's machlekes that they're having is not a machlekes amaram. It's a machlekes tanoim of Reb Meir and Rabbi Yisrael, as we're going to shortly quote. So Shmuel was like Rabbi Yechanan that said by meaning the opinion of Shmuel and the opinion of Rabbi Yechanan, they are disagreeing. Because it's not like one's talking about those that are inedible or edible raw. No, they're talking about all vegetables, and they disagree. They're talking like we're in the Brisa. What's the machlekes? The Brisa says as follows. It's talking about the laws of matzah on Pesach. So the Brisa says, Yotzin, you can fulfill your obligation of matzah, Beruchas Hashari, with a wafer, meaning like a matzah, like a wafer like that was soaked in water. You can fulfill your chiyuv of matzah like that. And this actually is a very important halacha for people that are elderly that can't chew. You could soak the matzah in water and fulfill and this is actually the halacha, and you still consider it lechem aini. Now, but mavushal, and so too if it's cooked, as long as shalei nimuach, it didn't totally dissolve. The Rabbi Meir says you could be yotzei your chiyuv of matzah like that too, even though you cook the matzah afterwards. Rabbi Yisrael, he disagrees. Actually, we rule like Rabbi Yisrael. He says yes, yotzei beruchas kashari, you could fulfill your obligation with the matzah, let's say that was soaked in water. But avalei b'mavushal, he disagrees with Rabbi Meir. He says no, if it was cooked, it's not called lechem anymore. It was cooked already. And even though it wasn't dissolved, it's not considered matzah anymore, it's not considered lechem. Now, therefore, says Rav Nachman, that's the machlekes of Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan. Shmuel, who says you can make a bayir pri adam on all vegetables that you cook, is like a mayor, who says, yeah, who cares if you cooked it? It still retains its status as matzah. Rabbi Yechanan, who says, shahakal, it's like Rabbi Yisrael, says, no, it changes. You cooked it, it lost its status. So therefore, matzah can't be yaitza. Oh, vegetables, nah, it's going to be shahakal. There, says Rav Nachman, you see that it's a machlekes tanoim. So it's not like they don't disagree. It's a machlekes tanoim, and that's a machlekes Rabbi Shmuel. However, the Gemara rejects Rav Nachman and says, "Wallahi, it's not true. The Kuli Yami, everyone holds shlok is cook vegetables, mavarchan leim by pradama. You are going to make a by pradama because when you're cooking, it doesn't change it. Oh, what do you do with Rabbi Yasi? Vad can look come Rabbi Yasi awesome. And where do we find Rabbi Yasi who says that? Oh, you see, when you cook it, it loses its status. It doesn't. It's not lechem anymore. That's a unique halacha with matzah. And that's actually as we rule. When you have matzah, you have to have the taste of matzah. But leka, and you cook it, you don't have the taste of matzah anymore. But it's not that he holds that aval hacha, but over here by the laws of brachas, afal Rabbi Yasi maida. Even Rabbi Yasi would agree that regarding the laws of bracha, it retains its original status and it's going to be a bay pri adama. And therefore the Gemara rejects Rav Nachman's version of explaining it as a machlek. It's not true. Everyone agrees by when you're going to cook the vegetables that it's going to retain the bracha bay pri adama. Now, interesting. Up until now, we had a teaching said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Both versions, when Rav Chizda said it, when Rav Nachman said it, they were quoting Ula, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, that was not like Rabbi and Shmuel, that said the cooked vegetables is going to be a shahakal. However, now the Gemara introduces a different Amoyer in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Amar B'chia Barabba Amar Rabbi Yechanan. He actually says a different version of Rabbi Yechanan. He says, no, shlak is cooked vegetables, mavarchan leim bar pri adama. You make a bar pri adama. Now, for Rabbi Yomid by Yefes Amar Rabbi Yechanan, so just to keep in mind, we just had Ula in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, we have Rabbi Barabba in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, and now we're quoting Rabbi Yomid by Yefes Amar Rabbi Yechanan. That he says, like the way Ula said it, as the Gemara is going to shortly note, shlak is mavarchan ma'aleim shahakal neim advar. Cooked vegetables, no, you make a shahakal. So we have machlekes in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. What did he say regarding cooked vegetables? Is it by pri adam or is it shahakal? Now, Amar Nachman Yitzchak, he says, now we understand the whole story. Kava Ula established, when he was saying that it just before in the Gemara's two discussions, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, that the bracha on cooked vegetables is shahakal. You know why? He established l'shabesh to his mistake, Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes. Because what happened was, he had the version of Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. He got so used to that erroneous attribution of Rabbi Yechanan's opinion, that now he already in the basement is saying, this is what Rabbi Yechanan said. But says the Gemara, that's not the case. Because as the Gemara actually goes further and says, Tohi bar Rabbi Zeir was wondering, this machlekes is mentioned in the base of Medrash. What's this whole idea of mentioning the opinion of Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes? It's Rabbi Barabba. Like, quote unquote, it's a machlekes, as he's not worthy enough to disagree with Rabbi Barabba. Rabbi Barabba, the Gemara brings many differences why we for sure should rely on his version of Rabbi Yechanan and not on Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes. First of all, Rabbi Barabba, daik of a gomer shmaitim Rabbi Yechanan Rabbi. He was very precise in learning and memorizing the teachings of his Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes, loy daik, he wasn't such a good student in that way, meaning he wasn't so precise in the words of Rabbi Yechanan. Void, moreover, number two, Rabbi Barabba, cult plus and yomin mahadid tamudik hamid Rabbi Yechanan Rabbi. Every 30 days he would review his learning in front of his, like Tais says, not all his learning, whatever he learned in the last 30 days, he would go out and review it in front of his Rabbi Yechanan to make sure he got it right. Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes, loy mahada. Every 30 days he wouldn't go it over. And third of all, moreover says the Gemara, Bamidain and Bamidain. Besides these two proofs that we just brought you that Rabbi Yaman is not worthy of disagreeing with Rabbi Barabba, we have another proof that Rabbi Yechanan never could have said it in his life, that version that shlak is a cooked vegetable shahakal. You know why? Because we have the following incident that proves it. That Hutu Masa, there's a bean called the turmis bean. The sholkele sheba zimna b'kedei, they cooked it 7 times. A good oiska kocht the chal in kugel. They did it with the turmis bean. They cooked it 7 times in the pot. Va'achle b'kenuch suda. They ate it for this delicious dessert. Now, Asa b'shal Rabbi Yechanan, they asked Rabbi Yechanan, what's the bracha that you're going to make on this turmis bean? Vamalu said to them, Mevarchan ilevei bar pri adama. You're going to make a bar pri adama, which is the original bracha you make on the bean. So you see that even though it was cooked 7 times, it retained the original bracha of adama, not shahakal. You see clearly from Yechanan's ruling that he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yomid bar Yefes' version, because even though you cook a vegetable, it retains the original bracha. And more, but the Gemara brings a 4th reason. Because Amar B'chia Barabba says, Aniri says Rabbi Yechanan, says, Ais Rabbi Yechanan, Shachal Zayis Maliach. He ate a salted olive. Now, what's important to understand is that when you salt something many days, the Gemara Pesachim Vav Menal says, Maliach kiriseach. Salting is like roasting. So essentially, it's like a cooking. when you salt something for that long. So he ate a salted olive, ubarchal of tchila v'sav. He made a bracha before he ate it and after he ate it. Says the Gemara for proof number 4, if you say the shlokas b'mosayu kaimi, like Rabbi Chibur Abba's version, that shlokas retains the original status of its original bracha, so we understand regarding this olive. But tchilim avarchal of b'ypreitz, in the beginning before he ate it, it retains its original bracha, made a b'ypreitz. When he finished, he made it ala eitz. But Eli if you say like Rabbi Yamin Bayefes' version, that shlokas la b'mosayu kaimi, that when you cook it, it doesn't retain its original bracha. So Bishlam Mitzchal, I understand in the beginning, okay, you're not making a bay pre-eitz because it loses it. Some of Archel of Shakal Nibadvar. I could understand the bracha before with the Shakal. What are you making afterwards? You're not making al eitz. On that, the Gemara rejects and says, no, Dilma may be bar nefashas rabbis v'chasroin. You're right. Although it's not going to have the bracha of the shivas aminim of Azayis, but maybe you'll make the bracha of Hashem makes many different souls in their lackings. I'll call Mashabar. Why do you make it? Lahachis b'am nefesh kochai. Therefore, you don't have the 4th proof, but ultimately you have those other 3 proofs that tell us that Rabbi Yechon held that shlokas you're going to make a bar priyadama and not get downgraded to shakal. However, on that interpretation of Rabbi Chibur Abba, the Gemara asks Masar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel from the following brisa. Brisa says, similar to what we asked before from matzah. The brisa there is discussing regarding what type of vegetables can you use for yechiv of mor on the Seder night. They brought in Pesachim, Daf Lametesam and Aleph. So on that says the brisa, Yitzben, you could fulfill your obligation with them, meaning, and this is actually the halacha, with the leaves, let's say what we use, romaines. Ubekelachshan, you could also use the stalks. That's the halacha, we rule you could use either one. Avaloy, and this is the halacha, you can't have it kfushin, you can't pickle it. V'lei shlukin, you can't have it stewed, meaning to say you're not going to fulfill your obligation of mor if it's cooked. So obviously you see, and that's the question of Chibur Abba, it does not retain its original status. Shalak is, the reason why we say next category, b'leibim not cooked, is shlukin is a little bit more, it's stewed. B'shalom is cooked. But one thing as the Gemara, you think the way Rabbi Chibur Abba is saying, the Masayu Kali retains original status, it's still a Yarek, and therefore you say by Pradama, so shlukin in my life. Why can't you use cooked, stewed vegetables for mor, but it retains original status? It should still be the original vegetable of mor. Says Gemara, no, Shani Hassan, there it's different. To be in the tam mar, you need the taste of mar, and that's actually the halacha, veleka, and that's not the case. But regarding the halacha bracha, of course it has the pre. It's still the pre. You're going to make a bread adama, just doesn't taste like mar because you cooked it, you stewed it, and that's why, like we said by matzah, you have to have the taste of matzah. It retains original status, but because the halachas are brachas. Now, parenthetically, the Gemara ends on the following discussion. We had a story that Rabbi Yechanan ate a zayis maliach, a salted olive. So we proved from there, like a Chibur Abba, that although maliach is kereseach, salting is like roasting, still it retains the original bracha that he made a bar pre-eitz. That was the proof that we rule that you'll be a bar pre-adama like Rabbi Yechanan. However, Amalei Rabbi Yirmi he asked a parenthetical question. Rabbi Yechanan, heichem avarach. How do you make a bracha achrein al zayis maliach on a salted olive? How do you make a bracha achrein at all? Even the shekila legarine, you don't eat olive with the pit. You obviously take out the pit. So as you get tin type of lamatesam and olive, but to shiura, you don't have the measurement of a kezayis by the halachas, and this is actually the halacha. When you're coming to make a bracha achreina on foods, you have to have eaten something. The eating is where the kezayis, like Tyson points out, we're talking about a bracha achreina that needs a measurement. Before you come to eat, we know you're not allowed to have benefit from the world, whether eating or drinking, before you make a bracha. But bracha achreina needs a measurement. When you're eating an olive, if you took out the pit, you didn't have a shiur. How do you make a bracha achreina? But he didn't have. He took out the pit. The shiur kazayis is with the size with the pit. That's the shiur of a kazayis. So on that Amalei, he said to him, yeah, because the size means the total mass. He says, Misa, but do you think kazayis godlabin? Do you think the shiur of a kazayis you need to have a large olive size? No, kazayis beinani bein. We need a middle-sized type of olive for the shiur of achila. You have that because the olive that they brought him from the Rabbi Yechanan is zayis golahava. They brought him a large olive. The avag of the sheklu the granise, although they took out the pit, pashli shiur, he still had the size of a middle-sized olive. That's not like we learned in the Mishnah Masechtas Kalim that tells us this halacha. That Zayish Amr, this halacha that we said, regarding all measurements of achila, that it's the size of an olive, says the Mishnah, loy cotton v'loy gadol. It doesn't mean a small olive, it doesn't mean a large olive. Ela beinani, and that's the halacha, that's as we rule, as a medium-sized olive. V'zeh aguri, that's what's known as the shemen aguri, as the Zayis aguri. Now, the Gemara just qualifies, he says, loy aguri shma, it's not really called aguri. Ela avruti shma, its real name is really avruti. Family, some say, no, really samrusi shma, its real name is samrusi. So, b'lam alek shma aguri, why is it called aguri? Sheshamli agur b'teicha, the word agur means it's gathered inside of it. Meaning to say it's ready to go out, because two types of fruits, as we mentioned in the beginning of the daf, grapes and olives, the reason why its bracha is different than all of the fruit juices is because all of the fruit juices is really absorbed in the fruit itself. By grapes and olives, it's just gathered inside of it, and therefore it retains the bracha of a pri, a bay pri eitz, or bay pri agafen. Unlike, let's say, apples or berries, where it's absorbed in the pri, therefore there it's going to be, let's say, shahakal, but here it's gathered inside. That we call the zayas aguri, but again, that's the medium-sized olive, and therefore he was able to make a bracha chrein because he had a large olive taking out the pit. He still had the share of a kazayas. Some ideas we spoke about in today's daf and Beruchas Daf. We continue with the same amar that said on the halachas of brachas that regarding date honey, you make a shahakal, and really all fruit juices, because it's zayah ba'alma, it's just like we just mentioned at the end of the daf, it's just like sweat. Unlike grapes and olives, which is the actual pri itself. Now, who is that like? It's like a specific Tana. It's like Rabbi Shua who says that you're going to be exempt from the penalty of chaimish when you drink the fruit juices of truma b'shogeg. Although when you eat truma b'shogeg, you have to add a chaimish. Shua says fruit juices, mei peiros, is not the food item. And that's exactly like the Amayr is saying of date honey, that it's not the food item, and therefore it's going to be a shahakal, it's not going to be a bay pri eitz. Then we spoke about trima, which is partially crushed vegetables or fruit, that the Gemara said b'milsayu kaimi, it retains its status, therefore you can make a bay pri eitz, and also it's permitted to do that by truma dates, although you're not allowed to ruin it like by beer, you're not allowed to make beer out of dates if it's truma, but trima is not totally destroying it, and therefore that's going to be retaining its original status of a pri and also for truma. Then we spoke about shtisa, which is a dish made with toasted grain. So we had what seemed like a machlekes. Rav says it's shahakal, Shmuel says mazayin, Zigmar says not a machlekes. Rav told me when it's thin, it's a thin type of a liquidy moisture. Shmuel's talking about it's thick. It's like a real, like a farina, like a porridge. So that's for eating purposes. You make a mezainis. But when it's thin, you're doing it for refuah, and therefore you're not going to make the bracha mezainis. You're going to make a shahakal because you're having pleasure. But it's still permitted to do on Shabbos. Why is it permitted to do on Shabbos? The refuah, you can't do refuah on Shabbos. Yes, because the halacha kala eichel eichel adam refuah b'Shabbos. You're allowed to eat food. You're allowed to have something that's good for your stomach or that helps you, as long as it's a food item. And because the reason is your intention is to eat. Incidentally, it's happening, but it's not a direct type of refuah thing. So now actually the Gemara asked a question. So then what's the chiddush of Rav that he's telling us you make a bracha? Of course, it's a food item. That's why you're allowed to do it on Shabbos. That the Gemara answers because since ultimately the person who's taking it, he's doing it for refuah purposes, so you would think he doesn't make a bracha. Yeah, you're allowed to do it on Shabbos because it's not obvious because it's like a food item. But I'm not intending to eat it. I couldn't care less to eat this. I'm just doing, I got to get rid of my headache, got to take my stomach ache. But since you have anah, so you have to make a bracha. But the bracha is going to be shakal. It's not going to be mezainis because it's not doing it for food, I'm doing it for a food purpose. Then we continue with the halacha of the Mishnah regarding bread. We had a machlekes that actually it's not so clear what the bracha is. Maitzi, everyone agrees, means past tense. So everyone agrees actually if you said maitzi, and actually that's halacha, you would fulfill your obligation. Now, ha-maitzi, which is actually what we make, it's a machlekes. Does it mean apik, which is past tense, or does it mean mapik, which is present tense? And if you hold present tense, you're not fulfilling your obligation, it has to be going somewhere in the past. We say ha-maitzi like Taisa says because we don't want to have the word mems touching each other, and therefore we say ha-maitzi lechem in the arts. And then we can learn the halacha of the Mishnah regarding Yurakas, that the Tanna Kama says you make a bar pri adam. Now the Gemara made a diuk. It's right after the case of pas, which is changed by fire, and that's when you have the bracha of a mitzvah lechem na'aretz. That's when you're going to have what's vegetables, what's called shlokas, when you change it by the fire. It's going to have the same bracha, which Rav says is going to be a bar pri adama. Now the thing is, however, Ula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan said it's a shahakal. So Rav Chizah says no problem, it's not a machlekes. Why not? Well, he says adama, he says shakal. He says because they're talking about two different cases, two different types of vegetables. Rav's talking about like cabbage, which in the beginning, it's not eaten in its raw state. It starts off shahakal. When you cook it, you're making it better. It becomes adama. Ula is talking about, it's in the beginning, it's bar pri adama. It's better raw, like garlic. And when you cook it, it gets worse. Then it's going to be shahakal. So therefore, it's not a machlekes. We're talking about different cases. Then we had Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman quoted the same type of same machlekes, and he says, no, it is a machlekes. Why does you have to say it's machlekes? He says, because I'll show you Tanoim that already say it's machlekes. What's this machlekes Tanoim? You have Rabbi Yossi that says when you cook matzah, you don't fulfill your obligation. Why not? Because you cook it, you lose the status. So when you cook the vegetables, it loses the status. That's going to be shahakal. Remeir says, no, b'milsei kai. So he's like Rav that says, yeah, it retains its status. So you see, it's a machlekes Tanoim. You see the same idea. But the Gemara rejects Rav Nachman. And the Gemara says, no, actually everyone holds, even these Tanoim, that shlaka is going to be bar pri adama. What do you mean? So what do you do with Rabbi Yossi? Rabbi Yossi says you lose the status when you cook it. No. That's for a specific halacha by matzah. You need the tam matzah. You cook it, you don't have the taste of matzah. But regarding the fact of being a pri, it retains the status of being a pri. You make a bar pri adama even after you cook it. And so too the Gemara said regarding mar. The Gemara asked, well, you see by mar? So no, the problem is because when you cook it, It just loses the taste of mar. But of course, it retains the mar, the pre of the mar, and you can make a bar pradama. It just wouldn't be valid for mar, and this wouldn't be valid for matzah. Now, the Gemara actually brought there, although Ula said the name of Rabbi Yechanan, that it's shahakol, but the Gemara brought Rabbi Chia bar Abba that said the name of Rabbi Yechanan, then no, it's a bar pradama. And the Gemara says yes, his version of Rabbi Yechanan is correct, and Ula, who said the name of Rabbi Yechanan was shahakol, made a mistake because he was following Rabbi Yom bar Yafes. The Gemara says you can't follow Rabbi Yom bar Yafes. He wasn't precise. He didn't review his learning every 30 days. And I'll prove it to you because there was this tumasa bean that was shulky, that was cooked 7 times. And guess what? It retained its original bracha by Pradam and Rabbi Yechanan ruling that obviously Rabbi Chia bar Abba's version of Rabbi Yechanan is correct. And therefore that's what the Gemara ultimately rules, that yes, everyone agrees by Shlakes, it can be by Pradama, and you don't see from Tanoim because no, Rabbi Yossi is not saying that. He's talking about specifically by Matzah, Nitam Matzah. And even the one that we said that says Shahakal is wrong. Ula was going in Rabbi Yechanan because it's following Rabbi Yom bar Yafes. It's not a correct version. Rabbi bar Abba's version is the correct. And parenthetically, the Gemara says from that story that we brought with Zayis Maliach, what do you mean, how did he make a bracha chreina on a Zayis without a pit? You don't have the shiur of a Zayis. Says no, because the shiur of a Zayis is a middle-sized bean, a middle-sized olive. He was eating a large olive. You take out the pit, it's still the same measurement as the medium-sized olive, and therefore he had the shiur to make a bracha chreina of the olive. Thank you to anytime for hosting us.